All right, so you ready for this? A deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. Wow, you've got excerpts, different translations, even a whole YouTube audiobook by somebody named Smile33. You're going all in on this ancient wisdom. We're here to help sort it all out, pull out those real nuggets of insight.
Yeah, it's one of those texts that the more you dig into it, the more there is to uncover.
That's what we're here for, right? To unearth those core principles of the Tao Te Ching, and then how does it apply to you and me today, in modern life? So the Tao, right? Sometimes we say the way, this idea of the ultimate source, the flow of the universe. But then the Tao Te Ching itself says the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. I mean, what do you make of that?
I think it points to the fact that it's more about an experience than a definition. In fact, your audiobook narrator, Smile33, talks about their Zen training and how that really helped them understand the Tao. So it's about embodying it, not just reading about it.
Less heady philosophy, more about how we live. I like that. And then there's this idea of wu wei, doing, not doing, effortless action. What is that all about?
So imagine like a master chef moving seamlessly around a kitchen. They're not thinking step by step, they're just in flow. That's wu wei. Aligned action, not just like passivity. There's a great quote: "Nothing is done because the doer has wholeheartedly vanished into the deed."
So not just sitting around doing nothing, but acting with this sense of ease and mastery.
Exactly. And a big part of that is softness. The Tao Te Ching often uses water as this analogy. It's yielding, but over time it can shape even rock, the hardest thing.
Like those Tai Chi moves, where they just seem to redirect the force. Gentle, but wow, so effective.
The gentlest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world. So it really makes you think about where true strength comes from.
So then how does this softness play out in our everyday life? Like, should we all just become these Zen masters, just flowing through all of life's obstacles?
Well, that's where the figure of the master in the Tao Te Ching comes in. It's not so much a title, more like a way of being, embodying the Tao, like humility, compassion, acceptance.
So are we talking like saints who never get angry?
Not necessarily. It's more about recognizing the inherent worth in everything. The master doesn't take sides. She welcomes both saints and sinners. Inner alignment is more important than outward perfection.
Finding that inner stillness, even when everything around us is chaotic, how do we do that?
That's the challenge, isn't it? The Tao Te Ching doesn't give us easy answers, but it really points us towards our inner vision. There's a quote that speaks to this. "The master observes the world but trusts his inner vision. He allows things to come and go. His heart is open as the sky."
Wow, that's beautiful. But how do we cultivate that trust in our own inner vision when there's so much going on? The demands of modern life.
Well, that's a question we're going to keep exploring as we keep going in this deep dive into the Tao Te Ching and this whole stack of sources you've got.
Yeah. So the Tao is about being, not just defining.
Yeah.
And doing, not doing, is this skillful kind of action and non-action. The text is full of these paradoxes, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they're not just like riddles or brain teasers. They're meant to get us to think differently.
Like, what's one that throws people off?
Embracing emptiness to find fullness. It's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
It really challenges how we usually think about gain and loss. Think about an artist, staring at a blank canvas. That emptiness is full of potential. Or letting go of some old belief that's been holding you back. That emptiness opens up space for new possibilities.
So are you saying that sometimes to gain control, we have to actually surrender control?
Exactly. Which leads us to another key principle from the Tao Te Ching, yielding.
Is that just like giving up?
Yeah.
Throwing in the towel?
No, not at all. It's more like a strategic retreat, not surrender. Think about a negotiator, appears to yield, but they're really gathering information, maneuvering themselves into a better spot.
So working with the resistance, not against it. Like water flowing around a rock, finding a way through.
Exactly. And it's not just about conflict, it's about reaching goals, too. There's a classic story about a farmer, his horse runs away.
Oh, I think I know this one. Everyone thinks it's terrible luck, but...
But it turns out to be a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. The Tao Te Ching wants us to look beyond the immediate situation. Trust that there's a bigger picture.
This is like a whole new perspective. So instead of fighting against life's currents, we learn to, ride the waves.
I like that, yeah. And that really connects to this theme of simplicity and contentment.
Oh yeah, that line you mentioned, chase after money and security and your heart will never unclench. It's so easy to get caught in that trap.
It's a trap a lot of us fall into. But the Tao Te Ching reminds us that real wealth isn't what we have, it's our inner state.
Like that story from the audiobook you mentioned, where people are so content they don't even visit their neighbors, even though the roosters can hear each other.
Right. It makes you think about our modern obsession with always doing more stimulation, more striving. What if real contentment is about this deep sense of inner peace and connection?
This is a lot to think about. So we've got the Tao, doing, not doing, softness, and then even this idea of emptiness and contentment. I'm curious how it all applies to leadership. Does the Tao Te Ching say anything about how we should lead or be led?
Oh, absolutely. And what it says about leadership is really radical, even today.
Okay, now I'm really interested. What does a Taoist leader look like?
It all starts with the same principles: non-force, trust, and serving the needs of the people. The master leads by emptying people's minds and filling their cores, it says.
So not just about giving orders, it's about guiding and empowering, helping people find their own inner strength.
Exactly. It's the opposite of those leadership styles based on control and manipulation. The Tao Te Ching actually warns against wanting too much control and power.
Because it can actually backfire, create more resistance.
Exactly. True leadership, according to the Tao Te Ching, comes from aligning with the natural flow, not forcing things to happen.
So not a dictator, more like a gardener, creating the conditions for things to grow, not micromanaging every detail.
That's a great way to put it. It brings us right back to those core principles of yielding, trusting, and leading with humility.
Wow, I'm seeing leadership in a whole new light. This has given me so much to think about. But we've just scratched the surface, haven't we?
Oh yeah, we're just getting started with this deep dive. There's still so much more to explore in the Tao Te Ching.
Welcome back. So we're deep in this Tao Te Ching deep dive. And I gotta say, my perspective is already feeling a little, I don't know, shifted. It's amazing how, this old text just speaks to so much of what we deal with today.
Yeah, it really does. The Tao Te Ching doesn't give you a set of hard and fast rules, more like a framework for how to deal with life's complexities with a bit more grace and insight.
Yeah, and one of the things we were talking about was this whole idea of yielding, right? How it's not giving up, it's more like strategic retreat, finding that more harmonious way forward.
Hmm. Sometimes to really move forward, you got to take a step back. It's counterintuitive, but powerful.
How would that work? Like in a real situation, imagine a tough negotiation, both sides are totally stuck.
Instead of fighting fire with fire, what if one side takes a step back, really listens to what the other side is saying, and tries to find some common ground?
Not agreeing with everything, but just creating a space to talk and understand.
Right. You might discover some hidden needs and interests you didn't even know were there. It's like that saying, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
And this yielding idea, it's not just for conflict resolution, right? It applies to personal goals too.
Absolutely. Think about a time you were so laser focused on a specific outcome that you got totally inflexible. What if instead of pushing so hard, you let yourself adapt, change course when things shifted around you?
It's like that line from the Tao Te Ching about the bamboo bending in the wind but not breaking.
Yeah.
It's about resilience.
Exactly. To reach your goals, you have to be willing to let go of some of your preconceived notions and maybe take a more fluid, organic approach.
It's like instead of wrestling with life's challenges, we're learning to dance with them.
I like that. And it takes us back to Wu Wei, that effortless action, going with the natural rhythms of things.
I'm starting to get at how yielding and Wu Wei are connected. They both require this deep sense of trust in the process.
And that trust often means we have to let go of our attachment to specific outcomes. Remember that line from the Tao Te Ching about chasing money and security?
Ooh, that one hit hard. It's like we're wired to always want more, more, more.
It's everywhere in our culture, but the Tao Te Ching gives us a different perspective. It values inner peace and contentment over outward achievements.
It's like that story you were talking about the people who are so content they never even visit their neighbors.
Yeah, it challenges us to ask ourselves what really makes us happy and fulfilled.
So instead of constantly striving, always looking for validation outside of ourselves, the Tao Te Ching is saying, turn inward. Cultivate that contentment from within.
That's the core of it. True abundance doesn't come from what we have. It's about our state of being.
It's a radical idea, especially in a world that's always telling us what we should be, what we should have, what we should be doing.
It is. The Tao Te Ching is asking us to step out of that whirlwind of desires and reconnect with our true nature, that inner peace and contentment.
So we've seen how yielding and Wu Wei can help us in conflict, with goals, even finding contentment. But what about the bigger picture? Does the Tao Te Ching have anything to say about how society should work?
Absolutely. And it's just as radical and thought-provoking as its teachings on personal growth.
All right, lay it on me. Lao Tzu's political philosophy.
It all comes back to those same principles: non-force, balance, and serving the needs of the people. There's a line in the Tao Te Ching that says, "The best way to govern is to leave people alone. The next best is to love them. The next best is to fear them. And the worst is to hate them." What do you think about that?
It definitely goes against how we usually think about leadership, right? Like control and authority. It almost sounds like the less government, the better.
That's one way to look at it. It points to leadership that trusts the basic goodness and wisdom of people.
So not so many laws and regulations. A Taoist leader would create conditions where people could just naturally flourish.
Exactly, and it links back to Wu Wei. Instead of forcing things to happen, a Taoist leader understands that it's better to align with how things are naturally unfolding.
Like the difference between a gardener who carefully tends to the soil so things can grow, and someone who tries to force plants to grow a certain way.
That's a great analogy. It highlights how important trust and non-interference are for effective leadership.
This is like a whole different way of thinking about leadership. It's a totally different model.
And it's not without its challenges. The Tao Te Ching understands human nature, how power can corrupt.
So how do we take this ideal vision of Taoist leadership and apply it to the real world?
That's a question philosophers and political scientists have been struggling with for ages. The Tao Te Ching doesn't give easy answers, but it does offer a way to approach leadership with humility, compassion, and an understanding that everything is connected.
So not some utopia, but trying to build a more just and harmonious society.
Exactly. The Tao Te Ching asks us to imagine a world where leadership isn't about domination, but about service, guidance, and nurturing the well-being of everyone.
This has given me a lot to consider. We've covered so much, from personal growth and conflict to like how societies are run. And it all comes back to these core principles of the Tao: yielding, trust, and aligning ourselves with the natural order of things. It's pretty remarkable how this ancient text is so relevant today. But I have a feeling we're only scratching the surface.
We've only just dipped our toes in. There's so much more wisdom to uncover in the Tao Te Ching.
Good thing we're doing a deep dive. What's next?
Let's dive into some of the more paradoxical and challenging parts of the Tao Te Ching, the stuff that'll really make you question everything you thought you knew.
Sounds intriguing. Can't wait. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to our Tao Te Ching deep dive. We've gone pretty deep, yielding, Wu Wei, the power of softness, all that. But you're saying it gets even more unconventional. Color me intrigued.
Yeah, get ready for some seriously mind-bent ideas. The Tao Te Ching really challenges how we think. It's all about paradox.
Hit me with a paradox. Give me one of these out there ideas.
Okay, how about this? The Tao Te Ching is really big on not knowing. It says that to truly understand something, you have to empty your mind of all those preconceived notions. Like, there's a line, "Not knowing is true knowledge, presuming to know is a disease."
So the more we're stuck in what we think we know, the more limited we are. That's kind of backwards, isn't it?
It goes against our whole idea of like gaining knowledge, right? Becoming an expert. But the Tao Te Ching says wisdom comes from humility, recognizing that we don't have it all figured out.
So not being ignorant, but more like having that, what is it, beginner's mind, seeing things with fresh eyes.
Exactly. Letting go of needing to have all the answers, opening up to the mystery of the Tao, kind of like embracing emptiness to find fullness.
Yeah, we talked about that. Still trying to wrap my head around that one.
Right. It goes against how we normally think of emptiness, like as a bad thing. But in the Tao Te Ching, emptiness is potential, space for something new to come in. Think about a musician improvising. Starts with silence, emptiness, and then boom, the creativity flows.
Like clearing out all that mental clutter to make space for, I don't know, inspiration or something.
Yeah. And it goes hand in hand with trusting our inner vision, which we talked about. The less mental noise, the more we can tap into that deeper knowing.
So not rejecting knowledge, but knowing when to step back from it. Cultivating a deeper knowing that's, I don't know, more from within.
I like that, yeah. The Tao Te Ching wants us to move from knowledge to wisdom.
Makes you think about how we learn, right? But if we're supposed to embrace this not knowing thing, how do we make decisions? Navigate the world? Can't always go with our gut, can we?
No, it's not about ignoring reason and logic, but understanding that's only part of it. The Tao Te Ching says we got to balance our analytical minds with trust in how life unfolds. Listen to that inner compass, our intuition, but consider the facts too.
So more of a whole person approach to decisions, head and heart.
Exactly. And a willingness to let go a little, not needing to control every outcome. Think about that farmer whose horse ran away.
Yeah, what seemed like a disaster turned out to be a good thing.
Right. The Tao Te Ching is always reminding us that what we think is good or bad is all about perspective.
So seeing the bigger picture, even when we can't, like, actually see it.
Exactly. And that can be really freeing. Lets us off the hook for trying to micromanage everything in our lives.
It's like going with the flow of the river instead of constantly trying to swim upstream.
Love that analogy. And that brings us right back to effortless action, aligning with the Tao.
But we have covered some seriously deep stuff. Not knowing, emptiness, intuition, even surrender. My brain is doing somersaults. As we wrap up this Tao Te Ching deep dive, any final thoughts for our listeners? Some key takeaway, as they continue exploring all this ancient wisdom.
I would say the Tao Te Ching isn't just something you read, it's about how you live. It's an invitation to be in the world in a way that's wise, compassionate, and trusting in how life unfolds. It's about discovering yourself, peeling back those layers to find your true nature. And that's a journey we can all take.
That was beautifully said. So to everyone listening, keep exploring the Tao Te Ching. Pick up that translation you've got, listen to that audiobook again, see what speaks to you. Let the wisdom of this ancient text be your guide, on your own unique path.
And don't forget, the journey is the destination. Lean into the paradoxes, trust your gut, and see where the Tao leads you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. Until next time, may you find harmony and balance in the way.